Well, the July recruiting period is officially open and the staff is already out on the trail. Joining me today to talk about Gonzaga's recruiting is Jason Jordan of Sports Illustrated, all right here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Don't go away.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. And I am thrilled to be joined today by Jason Jordan. Jason is the director of basketball recruiting at Sports Illustrated. He's here to talk about Gonzaga's current and future recruits. Jason, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come join me on the show.
I'm excited to be here, man. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I want to start talking about the few players that Gonzaga does have committed for the next couple of years. I know fans have been a little bit anxious, a little bit on edge, as Gonzaga has had these two just incredible recruiting classes back to back with, of course, Jalen Suggs and Chet Holmgren and the other pieces in both of those classes, Hunter Salas, Nolan Hickman, etc. And now for 2022, we're looking at one kid, Braden Huff is the only one. They missed out on Baba Miller at the very end of the recruiting period there, although I think Zag fans will happily take getting Drew Timme back as kind of the consolation prize there. But right now, Huff is kind of the only name we're looking at. I don't expect a huge role from him in year one, but I'm curious how much you've seen him and kind of what kind of player you think he could end up being in a Gonzaga uniform.
Well, I think he's a great piece, right? So sometimes you get stars like Chet. Sometimes you get really good pieces who could potentially be stars in the future. Like Huff, and I think he probably fits that mold. Highly skilled stretch four, does a lot of different things. You know, he checks off a lot of boxes, but on the offensive end, he really, he can get after it. He can score on all three levels. I think he's a great system guy, particularly for that system that fans will end up loving down the road. But to your point, I don't know that, the stable's a little crowded this year. That's not a horrible thing. But I think eventually, he's going to develop into that star that you guys grow to love for sure.
Yeah, it's Gonzaga has built these stretch fours into really monstrous pieces in recent years. Killian Tilly is a great example. They didn't recruit Kyle Wiltshire out of high school, but certainly his development was outstanding. Like they've had a ton of guys who've really stepped into that role. They're hoping Ben Gregg will be one. We'll see kind of what happens with him, but Huff is certainly a piece that I think is going to really contribute. Probably not at all as a freshman or very little, but eventually down the line, I think he's going to be a big piece. One other player that the Zags have officially in the stable, or at least officially as you can get, is Dusty Stromer for the class of 2023. Obviously, one thing that we've also seen with Gonzaga a lot in recent years is seeming to be a little bit earlier on recruits who kind of pop later in their high school career. I think this is frankly a testament to their ability to identify talent very early on. But Stromer is kind of the latest guy in that who's really kind of moved up the board a lot after Gonzaga showed him a lot of attention and has secured a commitment from him. What kind of player do you think he is, and what kind of player do you think he could be in Mark Few's system?
I think you're spot on with that assessment. Like, great eye, Gonzaga. Right? I mean, he's only gone up in the last 6 months for sure. I really like him. I mean, he just made the All-Star game at the NBA Top 100 camp, which means of the top 100 players, he was in the top 10.
Yeah.
And the top, for those that don't know, the top 100 camp, by my estimation, is the number one most grueling camp of the summer, individual wise. And then they put you on teams, but everybody there is a 4 and a 5 star player. So he was playing against savages every game. Just, great length, great skill set, very versatile. What I really like about him is that he really controls pace. So guys get out there, and I've seen it a lot of times with him. They think they can speed him up, and they try and pressure him because they think they can take it because they think he's slower, but he's deceptively quick. I won't say he's fast.
Yeah,
he's deceptively quick, and you're not going to speed him up. So I really like that. A high IQ guy. And he's, like I said, he's scoring at all three levels, just smooth. The best way to describe him is really smooth, plays at his own pace, and he gets where he wants to get on the court. So, and he does that against everybody. Like it could be a lower level underrated guy, or it could be the 5 stars that he was playing against at top 100. So I really like him. I really like his progression. And I like, with a logical progression, I think he could continue to rise.
Yeah, he seems like a really solid fit in Gonzaga's very fast-paced kind of move a lot offense, and he talked about that when he was interviewed after committing that Gonzaga's kind of frenetic pace that they run offensively was something that was appealing to him. Do you think Gonzaga has perhaps an advantage for a certain archetype of a prospect who is interested in that kind of offense? Because like I could understand why a kid like Stromer isn't going to go to, we'll pick on Virginia, for example, or like or St. Mary's, in the WCC programs that don't run that way. Do you think that is something that Gonzaga can really sell on the recruiting trail?
Yeah, I think they do. I think the system is definitely something that attracts. It's funny. I was talking to the Kentucky site the other day, and their fans are a little upset because they feel like they sell the NBA too much, whereas they feel like they should sell the system. And I'm like, well, no, that's not your brand, right? Your brand is to sell the NBA. Now, Gonzaga's brand is to sell the system. It's fun. Like there's funny, parallels there, but I think it works for Gonzaga to sell that system because I do hear that, kids say that they're like, man, and in that system, I've heard that a lot, even this summer. And in that system, I think I would flourish, that kind of thing. So for sure, I think that is the greatest selling point that the coaching staff has for sure.
All right, well, I want to move on to talk about some guys who haven't committed to Gonzaga yet. There's a handful of players that, of course, the Zags have been interested in, probably more than I'm aware of, more than is out there kind of in the public knowledge so far. Obviously, the staff has been very busy, has been very good over the last couple of decades at kind of finding some under the radar guys. But lately, the names that are kind of on their list are often some of the more higher ranking guys. Certainly something they've done very well the last few years. The first player I want to talk about is Mookie Cook, who is kind of an interesting story right now. He took an official visit to Spokane in February. He listed Gonzaga in his top 3 alongside Kentucky and Oregon. Small forward, playing LeBron James in an upcoming movie. Very, very athletic, very talented young kid. He committed to Oregon, and then less than 2 months later, he changed his mind. Maybe someday we can have a longer conversation about what the heck's going on with Dana Altman's program, because they've lost 2 very high-profile kids recently. But this means that Cook is ostensibly back on the market. Do you think the Zags are back in play here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be very honest with you, when he picked Oregon, I do think that Kentucky finished second there, and I think you guys were like the third tier option from all my check-ins. I'm pretty sure that that's the truth. I do know that now that he's back open, he has reached out to. Well, there's been some mutual interest with Kentucky. I do think you guys are going to be in play there.
Yeah.
And I also think he's going to be looking at pro options. But he also said Oregon was in the mix, but I don't think, by and large, kids don't decommit to recommit. So I don't expect that to be much of a player there. But yeah, I definitely think you guys are in play. And then there's been talk of some reclass, reclass options there. So, I think you guys will be in play. I think he'll look stronger at pro options. So I would say you guys, Kentucky, and pro options, and then the college coaches will jump in now.
For sure,
they'll start to jump in now, and especially we'll know a lot more after the live period. Peach Jam is where things go. It goes down at Peach Jam, right?
Yeah,
that's where the meetings happen, even though they're not supposed to happen, and that's where the calls are more intense, and things just happen at Peach Jam. So we'll know a lot more after that. But I don't expect his situation to be over soon.
Yeah.
So unless he's reclassing. So, and that is something that would happen after Peach Jam as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting couple of weeks for sure.
With Cook, if he does come to Gonzaga, or even not, what kind of player are you seeing here? Like, what kind of we know there's a lot of athleticism. What kind of other things stand out about him?
Well, he's a great system guy too. To your point, I remember Mookie keeps a blog for me at Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
So I remember him talking about the visit there, and to what I was saying earlier, kids that say, "On that system, I think I would flourish." He said that.
Yeah.
And he would. He's in a system there at AZ Compass Pratt where he plays with Kylan Boswell and a couple other high level top tier recruits, and he meshes well in a system. So he's a 3-level scorer, yeah, but it doesn't hurt him that other elite guys are taking the brunt off him, maybe in other facets of the game. But he's a big wing, great rebounder, can guard multiple positions, and he does a lot of things that check off boxes that aren't on the stat sheet, right? So he's the guy that you're gonna win with. He's definitely projected to be an NBA guy. That never hurts, right?
No.
So I would, where I said Huff's a great piece, I would say Mookie's a potential star from day one.
Yeah.
Just because he checks off so many boxes, his skill set is so diverse. And he's just big and strong wing.
So I want to move on to another guy that the Zags have offered in mid-June. That's Xavier Booker out of Indianapolis. 4-star big man, a whole bunch of teams who are interested in him. I'm curious if you have a read on him at all, what kind of player he is, and maybe if you got a sense of where he might be thinking about going to school.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Well, I'll start with that first. In terms of the recruitment, long way to go, right? Yeah. I know that Michigan State is a major player there. Duke's in there, pretty heavy. You guys are in there for sure. Louisville, and he still has yet to take a decent amount of visits.
Yeah.
And you got to remember with him in the last 6 months, he's blown up, right? Yeah. So we knew about him, right? But to the point about Stromer, he's doing it now against elite guys. We had during the NBA draft, we had an all high school NBA mock draft, and he was number 2 in our all high school NBA mock draft. If teams could only pick high school players, he'd go number 2 behind Mbako, who's going to Duke.
Right.
So, he's kind of having a standing 8 count from all this newfound attention. So it's not gonna be over quick with him. So there's a long way to go. And so, but he's the unicorn of the class. I don't know if you've ever heard about a unicorn. I don't know if you guys have any
is that a basketball
experience, any experience with that word there with you guys, but he really is 6'10", handling the. I mean, where have we heard this before? 6'10", handles the ball like a guard, can knock down shots like a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
I mean, his offensive skill set is pro level. Like he has a pro game. He's shooting the fadeaways. And he's a southpaw, which I think is tougher to guard, especially in the post. But he's checking off a lot on the defensive end. He's a rim protector. Now he needs to get stronger.
Sure,
but I don't think that with his skill set and length, it won't. It's kind of like Chet. It won't. It's not. He's still going to produce if he doesn't get. I always give this example. Look at Reggie Miller.
Yeah,
I mean, Reggie Miller is what. He couldn't bench press the bench. He couldn't bench press the bar, right? Yeah. But he was one of the greatest players in NBA history. Xavier is like Chet. He's mean, you know, on the court, tenacious, and plays with a high motor. So it's not going to impact him in that way. Long term, projecting into the league, he'll need to get stronger. But logically, progression wise, he'll get stronger anyway. But he's a guy I'm really high on. Obviously, he's produced this spring. And nothing's going to be over quick here. But you guys are definitely a contender.
Absolutely. It's funny, man. They need to get stronger arguments. Always funny when you're talking about 19-year-olds because it's going to happen. Like they're going to get stronger.
Yeah.
With Chet, we're recording this on Wednesday morning. So for people who may have watched on Tuesday evening, Chet Holmgren absolutely just decimated the Utah Jazz in the NBA Summer League. And gosh, I didn't think the physicality looked like an issue when he blocked Kofi Coburn at the rim, even though Coburn's got 100 pounds on him. It's unbelievable that people are still having that concern. Obviously, it's something that's going to change with Chet, and certainly something that will change with Booker too. But it's not a reason to not recruit somebody.
Yeah.
All right, last guy that I want to talk about with you, Jason, here in the second segment, Caden Cooper, 6'5" wing out of Oklahoma. Honestly, I was reading a lot of the different recruiting services, and there's kind of not a lot of consensus on him at this point. It seems like some places are really high on him, some places not nearly as high on him. A lot of schools are in on him, which tends to not mean nothing. That's usually pretty significant. Gonzaga made an offer a couple weeks ago. Is there much that you've seen on this kid?
It's funny. I talked to Caden last night.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. we're doing something on him for next week. So he's the best dunker in 2023, right?
I love that.
He hates the dunker label, right? Don't they all? But I mean, when you're East Baying in the pregame warmups, I think you might like the dunk. You know? So, but I wouldn't give him the label of dunker, right? Like he gets to his spots on the court, versatile, definitely tenacious on both ends of the floor, can guard multiple positions, and he's tough, right? I like more than anything, how do you impact the game, right? So he's an impact player, right? So that can be ambiguous, so it means a lot. But with him, it can mean a lot of different things, and so I think he talked about you guys' visit, and he said he had an amazing, it was amazing.
Sure.
It was an amazing visit. He said one of the things that really stood out to him was, how the fans are in awe of the players, there. And it was just like, wow, these guys are rock stars, right? And he said that really stuck with him. And he said he was like, man, it was wow. So I would say 10 out of 10 on the visit.
Sure,
right?
Great.
But I know that he's going to take another visit to Texas, and he's taking one more visit. I'm not sure if he's locked in the dates, but he's definitely taking 2 more visits.
Yeah.
So this one, I don't know if this is over in the summer.
Yeah.
So there's still a long way. And if it were a week away, I've learned that I've seen things happen in 12-hour increments.
Sure.
Like I've seen a kid say, "Yep, going there, man. I can't wait to get there." And then the next morning I wake up like, "All right, man, you ready to announce that you're going there?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going there no more." Like, wait, what? Wait, I wrote my story. Right? So when there are months for it, man, I'm telling you. And I think after the live period, once again, there are a lot of moving parts during the live period. So I'm always taking a standing gate count after that and seeing where the dust settles. And he's not going to make a decision before the live period because he's definitely going to take those visits. So, but I know that you guys made quite the impression. So, you guys definitely are strong with him. Definitely are strong with him. And he talked about the system, right?
Yeah.
And he's a guy who would He's a guy who would benefit from being in a great system like you guys' system, and he's aware of that, right? Because they sell to your earlier point. They sell that like they should because that's their brand.
Yep.
And guys are saying that system is getting guys to the NBA. So
I think the system conversation kind of leads perfectly into the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which obviously this conference realignment conversation has only been going on for less than a week, and as dramatically as it's happening right now. But one thing that has kind of come up out of it, and certainly has kind of just been a talking point in college sports for a while, has been that the rich get richer, and these big, huge schools in the SEC and the Big Ten are going to have this huge collection of schools, and with all the football money that's going to pour in, that's going to pour out into basketball, and there's this kind of growing concern for some of the smaller schools, and Gonzaga being in this weird spot of this like powerhouse school that's also not a football school and not in the East yet. But there's kind of this concern of like, is Gonzaga still going to be able to recruit? Are they going to be able to compete with, a system that now allows these players to be paid, which is fantastic and a good thing, but obviously it could be not an advantage for some of the smaller schools. Now Gonzaga has sold things other than money, which is kind of what we've been talking about with the system thing. But do you think there's any reason for real concern here? Or are the Zags going to continue to find a way?
Yeah. So I've talked to a lot of different coaches who the biggest thing that the NIL and the portal has produced, other than massive numbers, is entitlement.
Yeah.
Right? So every coach I talk to says, "Oh my God, like, yo, Jay," like I had a coach, a high level coach.
Yeah.
Right? Very well respected. I won't say his name.
Yeah.
But he said he called a kid. This was, during the portal craze of a couple months ago when everybody was getting snatched up. He called a kid, and the kid, this is the coach you would say, "Oh, wow. Hey, coach," right?
Right.
And he said, "I called this kid, and the first thing he said, 'Hey, it's so-and-so. I just wanted to, I had to call and check in.'" This is the first initial conversation. The first thing the kid out of the kid's mouth is, "Yeah, I need you to call my agent."
Oh, jeez.
Right? So, and he was just like, oh my God, are you kidding? So he was like, obviously that didn't work out.
Right.
So, the entitlement is something I'm always curious about how older, more established coaches are gonna, I mean, Jay left, Kay left, Roy left, right? And don't think it wasn't because they didn't see this coming. You know what I'm saying? So, you got Mark Few, I mean, established guy, year 23, correct?
Yep.
And so, how much are you gonna bend there? What I'm saying is like, the reality is this, and it's tough to say, but it's just the nature of where we're at with the sport. It is not crazy for a kid. Actually, it's on par, and it should be expected for staffs a kid to come in and say, okay, so how are you going to market me?
Yeah.
Well, what about the love of the game? We'll get to the love of the game in a minute. How are you going to market me? And how much money can I get in NIL? I need to know that, right? Now staffs know that that's the case,
right?
But it is, and every coach I've talked to is like, it's just, I got to get used to that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't see that ending anything. So I feel like it's only going to get worse. They haven't put anything in place. They're not going to police anything. They're saying they're not going to do anything, right? I talked to Mike Boyne at Oklahoma State. And he said a rule is only a rule if there's a consequence behind it. If you're just like, hey, we don't think you should do that, mister, they're gonna be like, nah, get out of here, right? Like super PAC, right? So the reality is, the name of the game is, what can we do for you? How much we can get you? And you have to navigate. Now, all kids aren't like, if it ain't top dollar, I'm not coming. They're not all like that, but they do want something. And they, they want it to be market value. It's just, this sounds weird to say. They want it to be market value, and they want to, they look at their NIL valuation, which is always funny, and so coaches are finding ways. Now, we're all learning this stuff real time, right? So this is the biggest summer of. I mean, last year, but this was the one where it was like, boom, it's here, right? So. Coaches are learning to kind of navigate their way through that space, seeing where they're drawing their line in the sand. And because some coaches are like, no, next, and I've heard that. I've heard that multiple times. So they're just trying to find the perfect balance in that regard. So I think it's something that will shake out over the next year.
All right, Jason, one more question for you, because I know that you got to head out here soon. I wanted to ask about international recruiting, obviously something that has been for a long time a huge part of Gonzaga's success, probably less so going forward, in major part because Tommy Lloyd was their primary international recruiter. He is out at Arizona now, of course. But I'm wondering if you think there's going to be less or more international recruiting going forward because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, if that has kind of had an impact on some of the international recruits.
Yeah, it has. And I do think it will. I'll tell you this. I did a story a couple of weeks ago about how the transfer portal is kind of halting the whole reclassifying up. And hey, come on now, you're ready. Come on. You're not ready. We just need you. Come on, right? Yeah. They're not doing that anymore. Now coaches are saying, hey man, take that other year. We got options now. And I know kids that are like, yeah, I'm gonna, because a lot of these kids reclass in the 8th grade and something. So they're like, they're like, I'm ready to go now. And the coaches, I mean, 5-star players, and coaches are like, nah, just bake a little bit more. We got this transfer that's averaging 18 and 8 at this level, and so players are kind of having to pivot now. Now they're, the messaging with the coaches. So if they're doing that, it's definitely going to impact the portal is only going to grow.
Right.
That 1-year waiver. Woo! Man, that just boom. I mean, it was like over 1,400 this year. I expected to be higher next year. With that, the waiver and the NIL, it's just perfect storm. And so your original question, is it going to international? Absolutely, because there are more options now for players at this level that are producing at this level. And I'll tell you something else before I go. Low major school, I'm working on a story about this. Low major schools, do you know what the message is from low major schools? A lot of them. The message now is, hey, why don't you come produce in portal?
That's wild.
Isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
They come here. We know you're going to transfer, but don't you want Mark Few to come into your, recruit you?
Right.
Well, come here and average 15, help us win the league, and he will recruit you. And the coaches don't mind talking. They're like, this is the game.
Yeah.
This is the game. So, I don't expect the portal will be crowded again.
Yeah, without a doubt. Jason, man, thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to give you a chance to kind of plug where your stuff is, where people can find you on Twitter for anybody listening who's interested in learning a little bit more.
Yeah, so everything's at si.com in the college basketball section. And on Twitter, you have the Twitter there. That's great. Thanks. Instagram, Jason C. Jordan. And yeah, man, check me out. Had a great time, Andy. Look forward to doing more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, man.